So again, welcome to the webinar. Allow me to introduce your presenters today. Heather Hottenstein, who is the Director of Customer Support Services at RPR Wyatt. She will be speaking and conducting a live demonstration. Our first presenter will be Jim Engel, who is the Vice President at RPR Wyatt and your host for today's webinar. So Jim, the time is now yours.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that. Allow me to, before we get started into the heart of the presentation, I want to take a moment and remind everyone of IBM's standard disclaimer as it relates to the information we will be sharing here today. IBM does reserve the right to change the release dates and planned features of any of the technologies discussed today. And we at RPR Wyatt would like to add that we believe this information to be accurate and reflects the latest information as shared by IBM. All right, we've satisfied the attorneys. Let's move on. If you will, allow us to review today's agenda. I will speak very briefly on the RPR Wyatt organization, our related offerings, as well as the recent IBM announcement regarding the future roadmap of Notes in Domino. I will then hand over the mic to our Domino Support Expert, Heather Hottenstein, as she takes a look under the hood in Domino and shares some critical security configurations. Then we have some offers and some free software for you as well today. All right, let's get started. RPR Wyatt has offices and teams in all of these locations. We have development services in Boston, Phoenix, and Seattle. I recognize Seattle's not up there yet, but we do have them. And Paris as well. Our IT centers plus support and consulting services are located in Texas and Slovakia. Finally, sales is handled out of both Phoenix and Monaco, and Phoenix is our headquarters. All right. What are we offering? Starting from right to left, if you will. And in the interest of time, I'm going to just mention the products and services and not delve into them in any details. Please let me know if you have any questions, or please visit our website for follow-up information. Our offerings include RPR Wyatt's portfolio of administrative productivity tools. It's led by Vital Signs, our premier monitoring solution. Vital Signs allows you to view your entire collaborative environment, whether it is in Microsoft or the IBM stack. From a unified dashboard, you can view everything on your phone, on your tablet, or of course on your PC. Check out our website to learn more about Vital Signs and our other administrative tools, such as Essential Tools and Essential Agent Master. Of course, our newest product is Essential Framework, which delivers Domino application modernization. We'll have more about that application later, about that tool later on. In addition to our products, we offer complementary services, including custom development, remote administration, and consulting, as well as technical and administrative support. Today, we will be discussing ways administrators can maximize their Domino security. But before we launch into that discussion, let me now talk about what the IBM announcement is. All right. Sure, it's the new Notes Domino 10 and beyond is great news, but what does it mean for the rest of us? IBM recently announced they plan to invest in a long-term roadmap of the Domino product family. This is good news for us, but what does it really mean? First of all, a couple of things stood out from their announcement. One is this partnership with HCL Technologies. IBM has entered into a strategic partnership with HCL Technologies to deliver on the roadmap and to drive some of the future development of the Domino products. IBM plans to continue to engage itself with existing business partners and clients as they previously have in order to avoid any disruption or existing relationships. Okay, HCL has done this type of technical delivery work for IBM successfully in the past with other technologies, so there is some indication that this will be a successful event. Important thing is no more feature packs. Those of you who saw them, it appears that introduced just a short time ago, it appears that IBM has abandoned that plan and to release feature packs for Notes Domino. It's gone all in on a new release. I think feature packs was a step in the right direction, but I think many Domino users are more excited about the hearing about Notes Domino 10 coming out. All right. The last part of the other thing that I found very interesting in the announcement was the Domino 2025 Jam. So where will all the innovation happen in new 10 and beyond in Notes? It's supposedly going to be coming from us. That's where we all get involved. IBM and HCL will be hosting activities such as face-to-face workshops, virtual events, and user group events. They'll be showing up at them in a feature feedback to generate feedback for the event for Domino 2025. This will give current Domino users an opportunity to provide feedback on features and updates and future directions of the product, the family products. In our follow-up email, we will also provide a registration link for the Domino 2025 Jam in that email for those of you who would like to participate. Well, let me ask, what do you think about the announcement? Let's find out. Scott?
Okay, so we have some poll questions to ask you and get some feedback here, and then we'll share it so you know what your colleagues and peers are thinking as well. So the first poll question should come up on your screen now. And the question is, does the recent announcement regarding Notes Domino 10 and beyond affect any possible migration plans at your organization? So give us one vote here. It doesn't. You will remain on Domino in the near future. It doesn't. We are still going to migrate away from Domino in the near future. Or it does. We will extend our Domino investment for the foreseeable future. Or the last option is it does. We plan to remain on Domino. Let's see where we're at here. So we're already 70% of us have voted. Let's see if we can get up to over 80, and then I'll share the results. We still have an audience that is alive. We're at 90%. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to share the results. So it looks like 24% of us say it doesn't really affect us. We are going to stay on Domino. 35% it doesn't. We are still migrating off Domino. 12% it says, yeah, this is going to extend the life of Domino for the near future. And 29% say, yep, we plan to remain on Domino. Ah, good. Perfect. All right. Okay, so I'm going to switch screens now over to Heather Hottenstein. So Heather, I'll let you know as soon as I see your screen.
Great, thank you, Scott.
We see your screen. We're ready.
Excellent, thank you. So let me just follow up with that IBM 10 announcement. It first came out as a possibility at MW Lug in August this year, and when IBM did follow through later that month or in September making that formal announcement, I was really excited because I've got 23 years invested in this technology, and I love the platform. Yes, I have moved on to doing other things in my day-to-day as well as Domino, but it's just something about Domino. It's in my heart, and I'm really happy to see IBM taking that step of extending its life. So hopefully it'll be here. I don't know if it'll be here another 23 years, but hopefully for at least a few more. So very good news. So anyway, going into security, I've spent the last couple of weeks writing a blog series where I put together 5 articles discussing IBM Domino security. And so for those of you that have read those articles, I hope you've gotten something out of them. And as always, if you have any questions, I'm here to answer those questions for you, so please reach out. Overall, with regards to the IBM Domino and Note security model, these items listed here on the screen is, in a nutshell, what you need to think about. Now, that's a pretty big nutshell because you're looking at everything from the physical security of your Domino servers. Where do they reside? Are they in a secure data center? How is that data center being secured? Or, believe it or not, I still do sometimes run into a Domino server that's sitting under a desk in a cube environment. So, those are the kind of things you need to think about. And of course, it goes all the way through to that actual Notes workstation. Where do the workstations reside? Do they walk around in the wild? How is the operating system secured? How is Domino or Notes on the workstation configured? So, while this is a kind of a short list, it's a pretty big list of things to think about. Also, with regards to the Domino security model, you need to think about your access points and how things are getting into your system, whether it's other Domino servers, other servers in general that, for example, might be trading data with Domino, or any type of user. And of course, that definition of user has exploded since 23 years ago. 23 years ago, that was a Notes user sitting on a workstation. And if they were remote, they were dialing into a modem or a digiboard. Today, that has so wild in that we now have any computer in the world with an internet browser client could be considered a workstation. We've got these tablets, these smartphones, and then of course different protocols. So anything has a potential maybe of hitting your Domino server. So it's important that you look at your Domino servers, you understand who's accessing, how they're accessing, and for those access points, you lock them down appropriately. So what I'd like to do now is talk about some things that are available in Domino to help you secure your environment. As Domino admins, we are all familiar with that panic call from an end user. I have an ECL pop-up, what do I do? And most of the time, admins out there or help desk staff, they tell them, click Start Trusting the Signer. We train the users to click Start Trusting the Signer, so they basically go away. They see that pop-up, they click the button, and they're good. They can now do what they need to do. But unfortunately, what this does in training our users to do this is it opens up the potential of malicious or bad code in some point in the future getting run on that Notes workstation. So a better approach to do is to create an execution control list for your environment. And the way you create an execution control list is you go into your server's address book and you create a security settings document. And then on this security settings document, you go to the execution control list tab and you define the administration ECL for your environment. And of course, now I've got the infamous hourglass where I can tell you half hour ago it popped up no issue. But anyway, so once you have defined your administration ECL, then what you need to do is you need to go ahead and appropriately sign your databases in your environment with the server ID or the Notes IDs that you've defined in the ECL, and then the users will no longer receive those pop-up messages on a periodic basis or a regular basis. So then in the event that a user would get an out of the blue ECL pop-up, there really is a need for concern. And so hopefully they're calling you or your help desk and you're preventing bad code from running on those workstations. Another issue that's come about in the world of the World Wide Web or the World Wide Wild Web is clickjacking. And clickjacking is a really clever trick that basically layers bad code on top of legitimate designs. So to the user, they're looking at a familiar page. It's one that they trust. And however, when they do click actions, things that they did not mean to do wind up happening on their systems. So if your Domino servers are web enabled, you're going to want to take action to prevent clickjacking from happening on your environment and in your applications. Now, if your servers are 901 FixPack 5 or below, then in order to do that, what you need to do is you need to set up an internet site document. Next, you'll set up your Domino server document to use that internet site document. Next, you create a website rule using the settings that are listed here in this website rule screenshot. And finally, in your Domino server's notes.ini, you set HTTP allow redirect wildcards equal 1. Now, your Domino server is only going to display the actual design that should be displayed and not allow clickjacking to occur. Now, if you take the action and you upgrade your Domino server to FixPack 6 or above, you can still go ahead and do the steps that we just discussed. Or you can add to your notes.ini this one line HTTP additional REST header, etc. And then you have clickjacking prevented on your Domino server. And also using this action on the FixPack 6 or above servers can be really helpful for a Domino server where you do not have an internet site document. And some of us just don't use internet site documents. We either don't understand them or we just don't want to use them for some reason. And that's totally fine. All right, so enhanced user activity. Basically, you know, while I totally know that this is what I call reactive security, it's still really important to be able to determine who did what in a Notes database. And historically, we have always had database user activity. It's just that we simply had the ability to see who read documents and who wrote documents. But I've always been against the rights column because it's extremely ambiguous in that you look at it, but what did they actually do? So luckily, IBM listened to feedback, and if you're on Domino 8.5 or above, you have the ability to expand or enhance what is being written out to database activity, and that you can now see who has added documents, who has modified documents, and who has deleted documents. So the way you go about doing this is you have to upgrade your databases to the on-disk structure of 8.5 or above. And the way you go about doing that is, or actually let me take a step back. First of all, the way you go about determining what ODS your servers are on, or your database is on, excuse me, is in the Files tab of your Domino server. Traditionally, you probably come in here and you have a folder listed. Well, over here, I don't know if you guys know this, but you have this little all button, and when you click it, you get a flat display of all of the databases on that Domino server. You can then use this file format column, which shows you the on-disk version of your databases. So like, for example, here I have an R5 database. If I go to that database properties, and I go to user details, you'll see I have my traditional read and write columns. Well, then I'll go ahead and I'll select a higher database that has an R9 52 ODS, and in user details, I have my advanced options. So ultimately, what I would encourage you to do is go and look at your Domino servers and see what type of file formats are out there. And if you have the older file format entirely, then that means that you've never changed your server to show or convert to the higher level ODS. So the first thing you'll want to do is in your notes.ini is do a create R9, or if you're still on 8.5, you can do R85 underscore databases equals 1. Then the next step you need to take is you need to run compact -c against your database or databases. Just keep in mind that for system level databases like names.nsf, statrep, admin4, etc., you do need to run the compact -c with the Domino server shut down, and you run those the compact -c from a DOS command prompt line. So for Domino, and especially for Domino on Windows, I've always been told case doesn't matter. And about 2 months ago, I got proven wrong on that. And also I basically ran into a very exasperating issue. So I got a call from a Domino admin client of mine and presented this problem where a user could not enable their out-of-office agent. On their workstation, when they tried to enable out-of-office, the error message, error found on module, popped up on their screen. So of course, the first thing we did is we took the ID and we took it over to another workstation. Changed the ID, attempted to configure the out-of-office agent, error came up again. Started looking into it a little bit more, knowing that this user had editor rights to their mail file, went ahead and tried to do a delegation. And when I try to delegate their mail file access to another person, I got a similar type of error message pop up. So next I went ahead and I looked at admin4.nsf. And sure enough, no request with regards to the out-of-office enablement or the mail delegation were being written to admin4. Looked at the security of names.nsf and admin4. User had the necessary rights. There was not an issue there. I went ahead and I Googled the heck out of this thing, found some things, but nothing worked. Opened a PMR with IBM, didn't really get anywhere there. And being the tenacious person I am, I just kept staring at it. And finally, I noticed that in the person document, on the first line of the user name field, the case displayed for the hierarchical name did not match what was in the user ID when you looked at the user's ID file. And at first my brain goes, the case doesn't matter in notes. Doesn't matter. Don't need to worry about it. And then of course, the brain clicks and it goes, yeah, but this is something that's different. So I said, okay, it'll take me 2 minutes to go ahead and give it a try. And I was very skeptical. I'm like, yeah, there's no way this is going to make a difference. So I went ahead, updated the username value in that person document to have the right case. And then I went into the mail file and went to the mail, the properties or the preferences, excuse me, and changed the mail file owner to now have what was listed in the person doc. And after restarting the workstation, the user could delegate their mail file and they could set their out of office agent. So there you go. There is a time when case does matter in notes. And so Scott, we now have another poll question.
We do. So we're going to take come up for a breath of fresh air here for just a moment. Kind of pull ourselves out of all the technical information we're being inundated with. So thank you very much, Heather. But quick poll: where will you be where will your mail be by the end of 2018? So will you be on Notes, Exchange, Office 365, IBM Cloud, or somewhere else? So everyone is still awake. We have almost 80% of you have voted already. This is great. We appreciate your feedback, and I'm going to share this with you in just a moment. Give us 3 more seconds. Let everybody stretch their fingers and their mouse just a little bit more. Perfect. All right. So I'm going to share the results. So 41% of us say we're going to be on Notes still. 29% on Exchange, 12% on Office 365, 6% on IBM Cloud, and 12% other. Okay, very interesting. This is great. We still have an audience out here. Okay, so Heather, this should go back to you. It's not going back to you. There it is. Now it's back to you.
Okay, so you see my screen again?
We do.
Excellent. Okay. All righty. So continuing on with the technical stuff. In the blog series, I highly recommended that if your servers are web enabled and they are not currently setting or serving up HTTPS, then you really do need to consider setting this up. And there's a lot of reasons. First of all, in the past couple of years, cybersecurity has become a reality, and it is something that we all need to think about for various reasons. Also, as IBM is updating features and utilities, like for example, especially Traveler and Verse, the ability to use those pieces of Domino require HTTPS. So it's something you really need to think about. Also with regards to what has changed in Domino in HTTPS is the SHA-2. And really the fallout of that came from Poodle that happened in the fall of 2014. Poodle was a complete game changer for web security. And that's just not Domino, it's all web security. And like I said, part of the fallout was the certificate signers stopped offering SHA-1 certificates and went to SHA-2. So with Domino, that now requires us to be on 901 FixPack 3 or higher in order to have the ability to implement a SHA-2 certificate. What it also changed in Domino was how we go about creating the different components that are used for HTTPS. So previously, historically, we went to that server certificate administration database and in a nice friendly UI created the keyring file, the STH file, the certificate request, imported everything, and we were done. So that changed, and unfortunately IBM has not yet given us a nice friendly UI. The steps to do this, there's about 7 or 8 steps, and it requires a DOS command line prompt. So, those of us that are scared of DOS, it can be a little intimidating, but trust me, it sounds much worse than it actually is. The tech note that I have listed here is a great step-by-step instruction set for going through the process. And overall, the process is you first download OpenSSL and using the DOS command line prompts and the steps that are listed in the document, you go ahead and issue some commands that create your key. and then you use the keyring tool. You download it, you install it, you then use it again through the DOS command line prompt, and you create your keyring and STH file. You create your server certificate request, and once you have your signed certificate from your third party, then you go ahead and, again, using the command line and keyring tool, you merge you merge what the certificate vendor has given you into your keyring. And then finally, once you're done with that whole process, you're left, just like you were in the old process, you're left with a KYR and an STH file. You take those files, you copy them up to your Domino server, and then in your Domino server's address book, you go to your Domino server document. And then in the Domino server document, you define that keyring file, and also you change your TCP/IP port status from disabled to redirect to SSL. So now anytime your server receives a request on HTTP, it's going to respond to that using HTTPS. And as a result, you now have secure communications between your workstation or between your server and that web browser client out there. Another piece of security and configuring it on the Domino server is within the notes.ini. And I encourage all of you to go and look at your server or servers, notes.ini, and look for lines that start with the values that I have listed here. If you have those lines, and you're going to have those lines in your notes.ini, go out, Google those parameters, learn what those parameters mean, and then make sure that they are properly configured for your environment to give your security what you want it to do. Also, if you Google, Domino, notes.ini, and just the beginning parts that are listed here, you're going to find other parameters that are available. And read about those other parameters and add them where it makes sense to give your security a boost. And finally, the last one I have listed here is a workstation, notes.ini. Sometimes run across a user that's a little too smart for their own good, and they may have set that in their INI. So if you have a tool to audit notes.ini files out there on the workstations, look for that INI parameter. Okay, we're going to take a brief commercial break. In the blog series, I occasionally mention some RPR Wyatt tools that can help with securing your Domino environment. And I just want to take a minute here just to show you a little bit about them. Overall, we have RPR Wyatt's Essential Agent Master utility. And what Essential Agent Master does is it goes out and it collects the information about your agents and puts them into a central repository. So, and of course that central repository is a notes database. So using different views, you can very easily see information about the agents that are in databases. Another piece we do is we pull back the information on mail rules. And I love this because to me, one of the biggest issues with mail security is when people are taking that mail and forwarding it to third parties or to an external entity. And once it leaves your environment, you lose the ability to secure those email documents. So being able to see very quickly who has enabled mail rules that send a full copy of the email to someone else is very beneficial to securing your Domino server environment. The other tool we offer is Essential Tools. And Essential Tools goes out and it collects information about your databases and it collects information about ACLs. So being that we're talking about security today, we've got multiple views that show you about your databases, ACLs. And so very quickly you can see what the ACL is for a particular database. And then also on top of that, we allow you to enforce that ACL. So for either a single database or folder or all of the databases on the Domino server, I can very quickly set up an ACL enforcer to say, enforce this set of ACLs. And if it comes across and it sees that the ACL does not match what's been defined, it will notify me. And I can also set it to overwrite that ACL. And then finally, we have the Vital Signs utility. Vital Signs is a monitoring tool. It can monitor Domino, same time, connections. We've even gone outside of IBM where we can monitor Exchange on-prem, Exchange in the cloud with Office 365, etc. But with regards to Domino and its security needs, I want to talk about log monitoring for just a moment. In that when things happen on your Domino server, it writes it to the log file. and a great way to see what's happening on your Domino server and to take action against things that are happening that you don't want to be happening is to read those logs. But as any of us, have a lot of, if we have a lot of Domino servers, or we have very busy Domino servers, those log files get very big very quickly, and it's near impossible to read them, even if it's all you did 50 hours a week. So what you do is you go and get a third-party tool like Vital Signs, and then you tell Vital Signs, hey, I want you to monitor my log file. I want you to monitor for this keyword or for this text string. And then Vital Signs is constantly watching that. And when it finds an event in the log that matches what you configured, it notifies you about that. You get an email message, it tells you what server created it, what time it would happen, and you can go and look at the log, you can read it, and get an understanding of what happened, and then go take corrective action. All right, and Scott, we now have another poll question.
Okay, time for another quick breath, and we'll give Heather a chance to get some water, so hence the poll questions. So this one's an interesting poll. So how is your organization currently monitoring your IT infrastructure? So are you using a free third-party tool? Have you purchased a third-party tool? Are you doing something with in-house solutions, or you're not monitoring your IT infrastructure? All right, I can hear all the mice. They're just busy as busy. Over 70% of us have already voted. This is great. Let's get over 80 and I'll share the results. So just need a few more clicks. We're almost there. Perfect. All right, I'm going to share the results. And the majority of us have purchased third-party tools to do monitoring. 31% of us have in-house solutions, and 13% of us do not monitor. Okay, interesting. Okay, Heather, I think we've given you a water break there. Now it's time to keep going.
Thank you. Okay, so you should be seeing my screen again?
We do.
All right, excellent. All right, so groups. The standard has always been use groups. Do not use explicit names. And I go and I look at client environments, and in the server document, and in ACLs, I see explicit names all over the place. And when I ask them, why are you using explicit names instead of groups? I frequently get the response, groups don't work. And my response back is, actually, groups work really well. If groups aren't working, it's a symptom of an underlying issue somewhere. And so then that comes about the question, well, how do we go about troubleshooting and figuring out where the issue was? And there are a couple of places in both the Notes client and the administration client that allow you to see how groups are actually working in the environment. And first way of looking at groups and, for example, a particular database and what a user has access to is going to the access control list and doing effective access. And this has been around, I think, since Note 6 or 7. It's been around for a while, but now a lot of people, I show it to people and they're like, wow, I never knew what that button did. But if you click on effective access and you then go ahead and you enter in a name, find a person in your address book, it calculates what level of access this person has. So it shows you the access level, any flags that are enabled, and also if you have roles defined for the database, it'll show you role membership as well. And then even more importantly here on the group side, not only am I seeing a list of all of the groups that on this workstation it thinks the user belongs to, but it also shows you how the user is getting their level of access. So in the case of the manager rights that I am right now getting, if I scroll through, I look for check mark or check marks. Sometimes there may be multiples, but ultimately it's telling me I'm a member of local domain admins, and that's how I'm getting my manager rights to this database. Very similar way of getting information is within the workstation. For any database that you have active, you have a security icon. And this icon picture does change based on your level of rights to the active database. But when you click on that security icon, again, you get a list of all of the groups that this workstation thinks you're a member of. And keep in mind that the list of groups that this workstation thinks you're a member of is based on the groups in the address book of your home mail server. And again, if I scroll through it, I can see how I'm listed, where the groups I'm a member of, and more importantly, I'm looking for the check mark or check marks, and the check marks tell me what group I'm a member of. Okay, so that tells me what this workstation thinks I'm a member of. You can also take this to the server level, and by making a particular server active in the admin client, you can then go to the People and Groups tab, and you can go over here to Tools, Groups, Manage. Here, you then go ahead and find a particular person, like me again, and I then change this radio button to say Only Member Hierarchies. This is now showing me a list of all the groups I'm a member of. And also, if I expand out the groups, you can see, like in this company calendar admins group, I'm directly listed. If I scroll down and I click on another group, you then see that it provides a nesting hierarchy. So I am actually a member of one employee's RPR Wyatt employees group, which is then listed in the To Everyone group. So using these three options, you can figure out what a server or what a workstation thinks a user is a member of what groups. And once you have that information, then you can go about figuring out what might be going on with a group or your server environment of why a workstation or a server doesn't see that membership. Often I see group type is improperly configured. Somebody has created a group and it was a mail-only group, so they defined it as a mail-only group. And then through the life of the group, it was like, oh, we created this database and the same list of users need to be able to access the database, so we'll put in the database ACL. Well, you can't use a mail-only group to do access control, so you have to change the group type in order to properly use it. Also, sometimes you have NAB replication issues. The directory, if it is not properly replicating from your hub server down to a user's home mail server, then they're not going to get group membership. Sometimes you also see duplicate groups. So you have two groups in the address book that have the exact same name. But if you look at the member list is different. So whatever algorithm the Domino server is using to grab a group, it's only going to get one of those groups. And if it's grabbed the group that I'm not a member of, then I don't have group membership. So what I have to do as an administrator is I need to look at the group, I need to somehow merge the membership list, and then just have one group with that name on my Domino server environment. And then finally, replication save conflicts can cause a similar type of issue. So it's important to keep an eye on your replication save conflict documents in your Domino directory. All right, so another common issue that I run into in Domino administration is where a person has an ID file where the public key stored in the ID file does not match the public key that's stored in the person document. And this can occur a variety of ways. I see it happen in environments where when a notes ID gets lost, the administrator, who may not have known what they were doing at the time, they just went ahead and they created another ID file. Also, I one time ran into an environment that their standard operating procedure was whenever they were reissuing, or excuse me, whenever they were creating new workstations for their users, they would just go ahead and create a new notes ID file. Why do you need to keep the old notes ID? It works. And you know what? For a simple environment and for a user that's not doing mail encryption, that does work. It probably will never come up as a problem. However, if you have users that like to use mail encryption, and also if you as an administrator decide to enable public key checking as part of your login protocol, then this is where problems can start or do start happening. So when you find yourself in this problem where you've got either one ID with a mismatched key, or you might have multiple ID files out there and you're trying to figure out which ID file is the right ID file, the first step you want to take is to look at that public key that is part of the ID. And the way you do that is in the admin client, if you go to the Configuration tab and then over here under Tools, you select Certification ID Properties. We select an ID file, go ahead and enter its password. Under your identity, your certificates, we have the Other Actions option to mail copy certificate. Copy the certificate, and I'll just go ahead, whoops, copy certificate. Oh. Sorry, my screen's just looking a little weird being in presentation mode. Anyway, so we close all the boxes. And then we go into a notepad document because we've just copied that public key to our clipboard and we paste it. Now in the case where I had multiple keys, I would want to go and open up each one of my notes IDs in the fashion I just showed you and copy those public keys into Notepad. And then I can compare them and see which ones are the same, which ones are different, and ultimately I compare that against what is in the respective person document. So in the case of Marie Curie, I go to the Certificates tab and I can compare these values to see if they're the same or different. In the case where you have mismatched keys, they're going to be different. And if you are just dealing with a single notes ID, then most likely your resolution is going to be take what you just copied onto Notepad and place that into the certified public key in the person document, effectively overriding what was previously there. In the case where you have multiple IDs, that's where you're going to have to figure out which one's the right one. And in the case where the user has encrypted mail, before you make any changes or before you decide, hey, I'm going to delete an ID file permanently, it's really important for you to understand which documents were encrypted and which key were they encrypted with. And then using Lotus script, you can write code to use the ID that was used to encrypt the documents to unencrypt them, and then to resecure them, encrypt them using Lotus script code with the new ID file that's going to be the ID file moving forward. Okay. And then finally, in a similar vein with this mismatched ID scenario and how we can go about avoiding that problem in the future, you know, for example, if I have a user who comes in the office crying, my laptop fell in the pool, it's not working, and then for whatever reason I can't get the data off of the hard drive, I could then be in a situation where I don't have an ID file for that user. So, you know, of course, the user doesn't want to lose their email, they don't want to lose their NAB, you know, all that kind of good stuff that's part of them and their Notes experience. So Notes actually has a really nice feature in the registration process, and that when you go ahead and you register a user, as long as you define the exact same name, that's first, any middle name that may exist, and last name values, as long as you provide the exact same information, when I go and register that person, I will actually get a pop-up that the person already exists, and it will ask me, do I want to merge that account? So just to take a moment here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to re-register Marie Curie. And I'm going to use a very secure password. I know that this is not security best practice, but we're just going to use that for the sake of argument. And then I want to make sure I take the step of setting the mail system to none, because I don't want to overwrite the mail file that already exists, and there's no reason for me to create a dummy mail file. So I then go ahead and I can set up other things here. Okay, I do not want to put my ID in the Domino directory because that would be bad from security best practices perspective. And I'll just go ahead and I'll set this to mcurie2. And I will go ahead and register this person. So very quickly it says an entry with the specified person exists. Do I want to update it? Yes, I do. So what it's now done is it's created a new ID for Marie Curie, which is called mcurie2 on my hard drive. And also it has updated the person document public key information with that new key. So now I can go ahead and I can give this ID to Marie Curie on her workstation, and she will be fine in terms of using notes moving forward. But just one last thing that I need to do. I need to go in here to a person document, and I need to change the mail system back to notes. And then voila, I have all of my information about Marie's mail server and mail file. The only thing that you have to replace is the domain value. And now Marie Curie has a new ID, and Marie Curie has her mail file configuration set back. All right, so that is the end of my technical speaking. Are there any questions?
There is one. One moment. I'm going to bring that up.
Hi.
If I can get to the right screen again, there we go. Are there any suggestions on how to identify and fix multiple mismatched ID file / person document certificates?
Okay, so other than when a user complains, well, I mean, you know, of course, if you did go ahead and in your server document, so over here, let me go to the server document. In the server document, you can, in the security tab, set up the compare public keys. And so, and this also can be done through a security settings document as well. And that's probably actually something you want to think about. But anyway, if I configure the keys here, so I enforce checking for notes users. Hold on, let me look at something real quick. And Domino servers listed. Okay, yeah. So it's everything. Okay. So if I set that up, then when a user goes to log in, if they have a mismatched key, they're going to be denied access. But I understand that can stop business from happening. And so you don't necessarily want to just go ahead and turn this on to see if you have mismatched keys. So how you could go about doing that? Well, I know this goes against security best practices. If you have all of your notes IDs with notes passwords, you know, so like for example, if they're stored on a secure network drive, which is, I know a lot of admins do it, and you have a generic password on all those IDs, you could write a Lotus script agent to go out and review each of those notes ID files and compare the public key to the person document. If you can get to the public key. The public key might require API level. That I would have to look into, to be honest with you. I'm thinking about this off the cuff. But if you could get to the public key information through either Lotus script or the API, then you could do it via code. But it would require you having access to all the IDs and knowing the password to all those IDs. But that's the only way I could think about doing it.
Okay, perfect. That's
I know, a lot. And I was just thinking through.
That's definitely a good question, but there's probably a real life example going on.
Yeah,
so
I have to look into that programmatically of what's available. But if it is available programmatically, then you could do it if you had all the IDs and all the passwords. But you have to have the password in order to examine the ID file. Yep,
perfect. All right. Next question: are there any unique steps that can be taken to lock down the IBM, Traveler security?
Okay, so we talked about this in the blog series. With regards to Traveler, we need to think about how is Traveler accessing the Domino server? And of course, it's accessing it through HTTP. So all of the things you can do to lock down HTTP, like implementing HTTPS, controlling what databases can be opened via HTTP, like right here, go to application properties, right here, don't allow URL open. So if you have databases in your environment you don't want Traveler getting into, like for example, maybe a really secure mail file or something you don't want ever accessed by a mobile device through Traveler, then you can set this up. Also within the server document, if a server has Traveler, you have this Notes Traveler tab, you can define the access list for Traveler. Another thing that I've had some clients do with Traveler is set up a proxy server for Traveler. So the request for Traveler actually comes to a proxy server, and then the proxy server sends that request to Domino, and then it goes back out. So ultimately that allows you from a network perspective to really secure Domino put it on your central or on your internal network behind your firewall, behind your DMZ, and then the proxy server is doing all that communication for you. Also, with regards to Traveler, in the address book, you have the ability to set up Traveler settings documents. So here we can go to Traveler settings. And on Traveler settings, once it loads, you have some different preferences that you can do based on the different devices. So like you can, set like the ability to have a requirement, excuse me, to have the password. So when somebody picks up a phone, it requires you put in a value, that kind of stuff. Okay.
All right.
So at a high level, that's some of the things you can do to secure Traveler.
Okay. Great. Yeah, so we're kind of getting short on time here. I know there's just a couple more things we need to do. So if you didn't get a chance to put in a question in, go ahead and continue doing that, or send an email to us. We'll get the answer for you. So I need to now switch over to one more poll, and then we're going to switch over to Jim to wrap up the webinar. So the next poll and final poll is: does your organization intend to bring their Domino applications to the web in the near future? So yes or no. I guess I may have put in there depends, but yes or no. Generally, are you planning to bring applications to the web? All right, give us 3 more seconds here. Grab those those mice by the tail, give them a quick click, and well, great. We're just about 80% voting. There we go. I'm going to share the results. So 56% say yes, we are going to bring applications to the web, and 44% no. Okay, perfect. All right, I'm going to switch the screen back over to you, Jim.
Thank you, Scott.
And I'll let you know as soon as we see your screen.
Okay.
Perfect, we see it.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you everyone for persevering and staying in there. I know this has been a long webinar, but hopefully you've valued the information that's been shared. Thank you again for your time. What we'd like to do is reward that investment of your time today. We have 2 offers for you. One involves the health audit that we produce, which is a consulting deliverable that we have, and that the health audit would include the security component that you saw here today, along with so many other components. Any individual or organization purchases the excuse me, 1 second here. Purchases the a health audit, we also will give them 5 full licenses for 6 months of any of our tools, Essential Tools, Essential Agent Master, or Vital Signs, for free for 6 months. Additionally, we have, before we do that, I wanted to cover what the Domino health audit covers. It'll target your Domino environment with analysis, including things that you see on the board here. I don't need to read them all for you, but I think some of the more important ones are down near the bottom. The recommended daily maintenance procedures and recommended monthly maintenance procedures, along with as the security view is up there, mail is reviewed, and a lot of server access and the server information is reviewed. We go in depth, and I'm sure we even go beyond this in some of the analysis that we provide. This gives you the broad brush stroked, if you will. And that's what a health audit delivers. What it would cost to purchase a health audit is this. We charge $13.50 per day remotely or on site. Of course, on site does include some travel related expenses, and those are passed through at the exact cost we have. I want to go back a slide a little bit and tell you a little bit about the other offer, which is a free gift for you. Everyone who's registered for this webinar will also receive 1 month of Essential Frameworks. Okay. Now, Essential Frameworks, let me go over to that slide now, if I might. Right here. Sorry for jumping around on you folks. Includes 3 components: Essential Data, Essential Reports, and Essential Web. with the essential data component, you're going to be able to get all the data you want out of your existing Domino databases, applications, what have you, in a easily to use JSON or XML stream. You'll be able to create historical data from this, and then you'll take all this data and you can create reports. You can create amazing eye candy reports. Of course, if you have existing reporting mechanisms, like crystal reports, etc., you'll be able to integrate with those. But even Excel, you'll be able to get eye candy type reports, eye-popping, very visually pleasing information representing the Domino data that you have. And this will have a web interface it can extend, and the nice part of this is that once it's created, the reports, anyone can pull these reports down and recreate them themselves for the following week, the following month, whatever it might be, and leverage past data with new data to process and give you new reports every time. All right. We take that one step further with Essential Frameworks, and we also bring you to what we call modernization of the Domino applications. We bring this app to the web. Which continues with the no security is involved in there, and with this component, you're able to build apps in minutes. Okay, which will have full CRUD capability: create, update, read, delete, whatever you like. Functionality will be there on the web for you. The way you're going to get this build new apps in minutes functionality is because we're shipping this with what we call Essential Framework patterns. And these patterns are set up situations that you would be creating in your apps. Standard stuff that's out there regularly that you want to be doing, this is already in there. You adopt the pattern, you're 90% there. And then you just basically connect up their data and away you go. This is virtually a non-development tool, or if you will, it's a developer's tool for non-developers to a certain extent. But what it does is extends the life of your existing Domino applications and certainly brings them to the web. And those of you that are looking at the cost of Domino client licenses, when you're able to hit your applications via the web with just a browser, you can eliminate some of those costly licenses or save on that cost. All right. Go on. I want to thank you for today. I hope you will be looking for us at the IBM Think event, which is coming up in March of 2018 in Vegas. We will see you there. Looking forward to that. Finally, if you have a chance, please visit our website for any follow-up information on our products or our services. Thank you for attending. Any questions?
Okay.
Please let us know.
Perfect. Thank you very much,
That's
Jim and Heather.
Yes,
Everyone,
thank you.
have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.